I found a necklace in our bedroom drawer that I'd never seen before, wrapped in tissue paper with a card that read, "For my culinary goddess," in handwriting that definitely wasn't mine. That autumn morning in Louisville started like any other. I'd just finished an early oil change at the garage when I came home to grab my lunch box. The October air had that crisp bite to it that meant winter was coming, and the maple tree in our front yard was dropping leaves faster than I could rake them. Sylvia had already left for her cooking studio, and I was rummaging through our dresser looking for a clean bandana when my fingers touched the small velvet box tucked beneath her scarves. My name is Christopher, and I'd been married to Sylvia for nearly 20 years. We'd built a good life together in our modest house on the east side of Louisville. I worked as an auto mechanic at Johnson's garage, coming home most nights with grease under my fingernails and the smell of motor oil in my hair. It was honest work, the kind where you could see the results of your labor at the end of the day. A car came in broken, you fixed it, the customer left happy. Simple. Straightforward. Unlike what I was about to discover. Sylvia had always been the creative one between us, turning her passion for cooking into a thriving culinary studio where she taught classes and hosted private events. I remembered when she first had the idea, 7 years ago. We'd been at a friend's dinner party, and everyone kept asking for her recipes. "You should teach this stuff," someone had said. 2 months later, she'd signed a lease on a small commercial space downtown. I'd helped her renovate it on weekends, building shelves, painting walls, installing the professional-grade stove she'd saved for months to buy. Watching her dream come to life had been one of the proudest moments of our marriage. I opened the box now, my hand strangely steady despite the growing unease in my gut. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a small pendant shaped like a whisk. The craftsmanship was beautiful, clearly expensive. The card attached made my stomach drop. The handwriting was neat, masculine, nothing like my own scratchy scrawl that Sylvia always teased me about. I sat on the edge of our bed, trying to remember if I'd somehow forgotten an anniversary or special occasion. My mind raced through the calendar. Our anniversary was in March, her birthday in June. This was October, early October. There was no reason for this gift to exist. No reason except the one I didn't want to consider. I turned the card over, looking for more clues. Nothing. Just those 5 words in elegant script. "For my culinary goddess." The phrase itself was intimate, the kind of thing a husband might write. But I hadn't written it. I put the necklace back exactly where I'd found it, arranging the scarves over it the way they'd been before. My hands were shaking now. I grabbed my lunch box and headed back to work, but I couldn't focus. I kept seeing that handwriting, kept hearing those words in my head. That night, I watched Sylvia more carefully than usual. She came home around 6:30, later than normal. Her hair was slightly disheveled, and she had that flushed look she got when she'd been working hard in a hot kitchen. She seemed distracted during the meal, checking her phone repeatedly. Our daughter Emma, 16, complained about her chemistry homework and the unfairness of Mr. Peterson's grading system. Our son Tyler, 14, barely looked up from his phone, shoveling food into his mouth with the mechanical efficiency of a teenage boy. Normal family chaos, the kind of controlled disorder that had been our life for years. Except nothing felt normal anymore. "How was work?" I asked Sylvia, keeping my voice casual. "Busy. We've got that big corporate event this weekend, remember?" She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. I'd seen that smile before, usually when she was stressed about money or worried about the business. "I hired a new assistant last month. Philip. He's been a huge help with the prep work." Philip. The name hung in the air between us, though she didn't seem to notice. I filed it away, trying not to let my face betray anything. "That's good," I said. "You've been stretched pretty thin." "Yeah, he's really energetic. Young, lots of ideas. It's nice having someone around who's excited about the work, you know." Young. The word echoed in my head. How young? Over the next few days, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Sylvia started leaving earlier for work and coming home later. When I asked about it, she always had a reason: inventory to organize, new recipes to test, paperwork to catch up on. All reasonable explanations. She'd always been dedicated to her business, but this felt different. She'd shower as soon as she got home, even though she usually waited until bedtime. She started using a different perfume, something lighter and more floral than her usual scent. Small things, but they added up. The way she'd angle her phone away from me when texting. The new lingerie I'd noticed in the laundry, lacy things she hadn't worn for me in months. The fact that she'd suddenly started going to the gym 3 times a week when she'd barely exercised in years. I didn't want to be that husband who jumped to conclusions. Maybe the necklace was from a grateful client. Maybe I was paranoid, reading meaning into innocent changes. But I couldn't forget that card, those words written with obvious affection. For my culinary goddess. Who talks like that to their cooking instructor? The following Tuesday, I decided to stop by Sylvia's studio during my lunch break. I'd done it before occasionally, surprising her with coffee or just saying hello. We'd grab a quick sandwich together, steal 15 minutes of connection in the middle of our busy days. It was one of the small rituals that had kept us close over the years. But when I pulled into the parking lot, I hesitated. Through the front window, I could see Sylvia laughing with a young guy, mid-20s at most, athletic build, wearing a chef's apron with the studio's logo. He had that kind of easy confidence that comes from being young and attractive and not yet beaten down by life. The kind of smile that probably made customers feel welcome and comfortable. They were standing close, too close, reviewing something on a tablet. His hand brushed her arm as he pointed at the screen. She didn't move away. I sat in my truck, engine idling, watching them. They moved around each other with a familiarity that made my chest tight. She said something, and he threw his head back laughing. She looked happy, more animated than I'd seen her in months. Maybe years. I didn't go in. Instead, I drove back to the garage and tried to focus on the transmission I was rebuilding for Mrs. Henderson's Camry. But my hands shook as I worked, and I nearly stripped a bolt I'd removed 100 times before. Jonathan, my coworker and closest friend at the shop, noticed. "You okay, man?" he asked during our afternoon break. "You've been off all day." I almost told him everything right then. But what would I say? I found a necklace and saw my wife standing near her employee. It sounded paranoid even in my own head. "Just tired," I said. That weekend, I told Sylvia I was going fishing with Jonathan, but instead I drove to a coffee shop across from her studio. The corporate event was supposed to run all day Saturday. I'd packed my truck with fishing gear that morning, made sure Emma and Tyler saw me loading the cooler, played the part perfectly. Then I'd driven to the little cafe on 4th Street that had a clear view of Sylvia's studio entrance. I felt sick doing it. This wasn't who I was. I trusted my wife. We'd built a marriage on honesty and communication. Or so I'd thought. I watched as clients arrived for the event. About 20 people, corporate types and business casual, probably a team-building exercise or client appreciation thing. The kind of booking that paid well, that Sylvia always got excited about. Through the windows, I could see her in her element, demonstrating knife techniques, guiding people through recipes, smiling that professional smile she used with clients. And there was Philip, right beside her. They moved in sync, like dancers who'd been working together for years instead of weeks. He'd hand her ingredients before she asked for them. She'd gesture toward a station, and he'd already be heading there with the necessary supplies. It was the kind of unspoken communication that comes from spending a lot of time together. The event ran until 5, and I watched the clients filter out, looking satisfied and carrying containers of whatever they'd made. Most of the staff left too, 2 other instructors I recognized, a couple of kitchen assistants. But Philip stayed. Through the window, I saw him help Sylvia clean up. They worked for another hour, wiping down stations, storing equipment, sweeping floors. Normal end-of-day stuff. But then, as they were finishing, I saw it. Nothing dramatic, nothing that would prove anything in court. Just his hand on the small of her back as they laughed about something. The way she leaned into him, natural and comfortable. The way she looked up at him, her face soft and open in a way it hadn't been with me in. How long? It lasted maybe 3 seconds, but I knew. You know your wife's body language after 20 years. You know the difference between friendly and intimate. This was intimate. I sat in my truck for a long time after they turned off the lights and left through the back entrance. Separately, I noticed, with about 5 minutes between departures. Smart. They were being careful. I drove home and waited. I sent Jonathan a text thanking him for the fishing trip, keeping up the charade. I warmed up leftover pizza for Emma and Tyler, listened to them bicker about whose turn it was to pick the movie, helped Tyler with a math problem he'd been stuck on. Normal dad stuff. All while my world was crumbling. When Sylvia arrived an hour later than Philip had left, I was sitting in our living room with the TV off, just waiting in the dim light from the kitchen. "Hey, sorry I'm late," she said, dropping her bag by the door. "The cleanup took forever. Corporate events are always such a mess." "I'm sure it did," I said quietly. Something in my tone made her pause. She turned to look at me properly, and I saw the moment she registered that something was wrong. "Is everything okay?" she asked, taking a cautious step into the room. "Who's Philip, really?" I asked. Her face went pale. Actually pale, like the blood had drained out of it. "What do you mean?" "I told you, he's my new assistant." "Don't." I held up my hand. "I found the necklace, Sylvia. The one he gave you. For my culinary goddess." The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. I could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen, hear Emma's music playing upstairs, hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Sylvia slowly sat down on the couch across from me, and I saw the moment she made a decision. The moment she stopped pretending. "How long?" I asked when she didn't speak. "Chris, it's not what you think." "How long?" My voice came out harder than I intended. She flinched. 2 months. It started about 2 months after I hired him. 2 months. While I'd been coming home every night with grease under my fingernails, while I'd been helping Tyler with his homework and taking Emma to driver's ed, while I'd been living my normal life thinking everything was fine. 2 months. Why? The question came out broken, all the anger draining away, leaving just confusion and hurt. She started crying. Not the delicate crying of movies, but the ugly kind, with gasping breaths and running mascara. "I don't know. He made me feel young again. Exciting. Like I was more than just someone's wife or someone's mom. The studio was struggling financially, and he had all these ideas, this energy. We started spending more time together, working late, and then one night after a late event, I don't need the details." I stood up, suddenly needing to move, to do something. "Does he know you're married? Does he know about Emma and Tyler?" "Yes. He knows everything. And he didn't care." She shook her head, still crying. "Chris, I never meant for this to happen. I love you. I love our family. It just happened." "Don't say that." The anger was back now, hot and sharp. "Don't say it just happened, like it was an accident, like you tripped and fell into bed with him. You made choices, Sylvia. Every single day for 2 months, you made the choice to betray me. To betray us." She couldn't argue with that. She just sat there crying while I paced the room, my mind racing through everything. Every late night, every shower as soon as she got home, every time she'd been too tired, when I'd reached for her in bed. How long had I been the fool? Over the next few weeks, the house existed in a state of Cold War. We were civil in front of Emma and Tyler, but the warmth was gone. I slept in the guest room. We communicated in short, functional sentences about schedules and bills, and who would pick up the kids from where. But I couldn't let it rest. I needed to understand what had happened, who this Philip really was. Part of me hoped that if I could understand it, I could fix it. Another part of me just wanted to know the full extent of the betrayal. I started with Linda, Sylvia's best friend since college. We met for coffee on a Tuesday morning before my shift at the garage. She knew something was wrong the moment she saw my face. I told her everything. The necklace, the surveillance, the confrontation. When I finished, Linda looked miserable. "I was afraid of this," she said quietly. "You knew." The betrayal somehow felt worse. Linda had been at our wedding. She was Emma's godmother. I suspected. About a month ago, I stopped by the studio to surprise her for lunch, and I saw them together. Nothing explicit, but the vibe was off. I asked her about it, and she got defensive, said I was imagining things. I wanted to believe her. Next, I talked to Sabina, one of Sylvia's longtime employees. Sabina had been with the studio since the beginning, had helped Sylvia through the early struggles of starting a business. She was cautious at first, clearly uncomfortable discussing her boss's personal life with the boss's husband. "I'm not trying to get anyone in trouble. I just need to understand what's been happening." She sighed, looking around to make sure no one else was nearby. "Okay." Philip started in August. Seemed like a nice guy at first, really knowledgeable about food, good with customers. But pretty quickly, I noticed he was spending a lot of one-on-one time with Sylvia. Late nights, coming in early together, taking long lunch breaks. And he was asking a lot of questions. What kind of questions? About the business. Client lists, revenue, her relationships with suppliers. At first, I thought he was just interested in learning the industry, but it felt calculating, like he was gathering information. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. What else? There was something Tom mentioned to me last week. Tom was another instructor, had been teaching at the studio for 3 years. He said Philip had been asking about the studio's finances, wanted to know how profitable we were, whether Sylvia owned the building or leased it, stuff like that. Tom thought it was weird but didn't say anything to Sylvia because, well, she and Philip seemed close. The picture was getting clearer, and I didn't like what I was seeing. It took another week, but I finally pieced together the full story. I talked to Tom directly, who reluctantly confirmed what Sabina had said. I checked our joint bank account and found transfers I didn't recognize, money moving from our savings into the business account, thousands of dollars over the past 2 months. When I confronted Sylvia about it, everything came crashing down. We were in the kitchen, late at night after the kids had gone to bed. She'd been avoiding me for days, and I'd finally had enough. "Where did $15,000 go?" I asked, showing her the bank statements. Her face crumbled. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." And she did. The whole ugly truth. Philip had convinced her to invest in expanding the business. He had connections, he said. He could bring in corporate clients, high-end private events, maybe even get them featured in local media. All they needed was capital to upgrade equipment, expand the space, hire more staff. He had all these plans, Sylvia said, tears streaming down her face. Business plans, marketing strategies, it all seemed so legitimate. He said with an investment of $50,000, we could triple our revenue in a year. $50,000? I felt sick. Where did the rest come from? Loans. Business loans in the studio's name. Philip helped me fill out the applications, said he had experience with this kind of thing from previous restaurant ventures. Did you check his references? Did you verify any of this? She shook her head, looking ashamed. I trusted him. I was in love with him, Chris. Or I thought I was. He made everything seem possible, made me feel like I could have more than just a small local business. And I wanted to believe him. Where is he now? Where's the money? Gone. Her voice was barely a whisper. He disappeared last week. Just didn't show up for work one day. His phone's disconnected. I went to the address he gave me when I hired him, and it's a vacant apartment. I've been trying to figure out what to do. The loans are real, though. The studio owes almost $80,000 now, between what I took from our savings, what I invested from the business, and what we borrowed. I sat down heavily at the kitchen table. $80,000. Our savings were gone. The business Sylvia had built over 7 years was drowning in debt. And all because she'd fallen for a con man who'd seduced her in every possible way. Have you reported him to the police? I asked. What would I tell them? That the man I was having an affair with stole from me? They'd want to know why I gave him access to the business accounts, why I trusted him with so much money. I'd have to admit everything. You're going to have to admit everything anyway, Sylvia. To me, to the kids, to your lawyer, when we figure out how to deal with this debt. You can't hide from this. I know. She looked defeated in a way I'd never seen her before. I've already talked to a bankruptcy lawyer. I'm going to have to sell the studio. It's the only way to cover the debts. Even then, we might still owe money. We sat in silence for a long time. 20 years of marriage, and it had come to this. My wife had betrayed me with a man who'd used her, taken her money, and disappeared. She was going to lose her business, her dream. And somehow, we still had to figure out how to move forward. The hardest part wasn't dealing with the financial mess, or even processing the betrayal. It was telling Emma and Tyler. They'd been asking questions for weeks, noticing the tension, the fact that I was sleeping in the guest room, the way their mother's eyes were always red from crying. We decided to tell them together, on a Sunday afternoon, when we were all home. Sylvia had been putting it off, but I insisted we couldn't keep them in the dark any longer. They deserved to know why their family was falling apart. Sit down, both of you, I said, turning off the TV. Your mom and I need to talk to you about something. Emma knew immediately. At 16, she'd inherited Sylvia's emotional intelligence. You're getting divorced, aren't you? Tyler looked up from his phone, and for the first time in months, I had his full attention. Dad, your mom and I are having some serious problems, I started carefully. We're going to figure things out, but it's going to take time, and things are going to change around here. What kind of problems? Tyler asked. He looked scared, younger than his 14 years. Sylvia and I looked at each other. How much should we tell them? How much was too much? But Emma's next question made the decision for us. Did one of you cheat? The directness of the question caught us both off guard. Sylvia opened her mouth, but I spoke first, wanting to protect the kids from the full ugly truth as much as possible. Your mother made some mistakes. Big ones. But we're trying to figure out if we can work through them. Emma looked at her mother with something close to disappointment, and that seemed to hurt Sylvia more than anything I'd said. Tyler's face had gone carefully blank, the way it did when he was trying not to show emotion. "I'm not a baby," Emma said, her voice hard. "You cheated on Dad. Just say it." The words hung in the air like a slap. Sylvia started crying harder, and I saw Emma's expression flicker between anger and guilt. She was still a kid, no matter how grown up she tried to act. "Yes," Sylvia admitted. "I did. And it was the worst mistake of my life. I hurt your father, and I hurt our family, and I'm so sorry." Tyler stood up abruptly. "I need to think about this," Emma said, and followed her brother upstairs. Sylvia and I sat in the living room, listening to the sounds of our children processing the destruction of their family. It was worse than the betrayal, worse than the financial ruin. This was breaking our kids' hearts, and there was nothing we could do to fix it. Over the following weeks, we tried counseling. We tried talking. We tried everything except what we both knew needed to happen. The counselor, a soft-spoken woman named Dr. Martinez, asked us to communicate our feelings, to work through the betrayal, to rebuild trust. But how do you rebuild something that's been completely shattered? I'd sit in her office twice a week, Sylvia on one end of the couch and me on the other, and we'd talk in circles. Sylvia would explain about feeling invisible, about Philip making her feel seen and desired. I'd explain about feeling betrayed, about wondering if our entire marriage had been a lie. Dr. Martinez would nod and take notes and give us homework, date nights, communication exercises, daily check-ins. We tried. God knows we tried. But every time I looked at Sylvia, I saw her with him. I'd imagine them laughing together, touching, sharing intimacies that should have been ours alone. Every time she came home late, and now she was legitimately late, working a second job to try to deal with the debt, I'd wonder if she was lying again. The trust was gone, and without trust, what did we have? The studio had to be sold. It broke Sylvia's heart in a way that was almost physical to watch. She'd built that place from nothing, had poured 7 years of her life into it. Every cooking class, every satisfied customer, every small victory had been hers. And now she had to watch it go to pay for the debts her affair had created. One night in late November, about 6 weeks after everything came out, Sylvia came to me with papers. The house was quiet. Emma was at a friend's house, and Tyler was at basketball practice. It was just the two of us, alone with the ruins of our marriage. "I contacted a lawyer," she said quietly, holding out a folder. "I think we both know this isn't going to work." I looked at the divorce papers in her hands. After 20 years together, it came down to legal documents and asset division. "Is this what you want?" "No." She sat down beside me on the couch, careful to leave space between us. "But I don't think it matters what I want anymore. I destroyed us, Chris. I destroyed everything. And I don't think there's any coming back from that. The kids will survive. They're strong. Stronger than we give them credit for." She wiped her eyes. "My parents got divorced when I was 12. They fought constantly before that. Every night, screaming matches, slamming doors, my mom crying in the bedroom. The divorce was almost a relief. At least after, there was peace. I could breathe again. I don't want Emma and Tyler growing up in a house full of resentment and anger." She was right. I'd grown up the same way, parents who stayed together for the kids, but made everyone miserable in the process. My dad would give my mom the silent treatment for days. My mom would make passive-aggressive comments about his drinking. They'd sleep in separate rooms, eat dinner without speaking, use us kids as messengers. "Tell your father dinner's ready. Ask your mother where she put my keys." It was toxic and painful, and I'd promised myself I'd never put my own children through that. "Okay," I said finally. "Okay." We sat in silence for a while, the papers between us like a physical barrier. 20 years of marriage, reduced to legal documents and signatures. "I'm sorry," Sylvia said. "For all of it. For Philip, for the money, for not being brave enough to tell you I was unhappy before I did something we couldn't undo. I'm sorry I'm not who you thought I was." "I'm sorry too," I said, and meant it. "I'm sorry I didn't notice you were unhappy. I'm sorry I got comfortable, stopped trying. I'm sorry we couldn't find a way to fix this. It's not your fault, Chris. This is on me. All of it. Maybe. But a marriage doesn't fall apart because of just one person. We both stopped paying attention somewhere along the way. The divorce process was surprisingly civil. We agreed to split everything as fairly as possible. The house would be sold. It had to be to cover some of the debt from the studio. We'd split the proceeds. I kept my truck and tools, my fishing gear, the TV. She kept her car, her remaining cookbooks, the antique dresser her grandmother had given her. We'd share custody of Emma and Tyler, though they'd spend most of their time with me since Sylvia was working 2 jobs now, trying to climb out of the financial hole. But something unexpected happened as we went through the motions of separating our lives. We started talking. Really talking, in a way we hadn't in years. Maybe it was because the pressure was off. We weren't trying to save the marriage anymore, just trying to end it without destroying each other or the kids. One evening in early December, while we were sorting through boxes of old photographs for Emma and Tyler, we sat there surrounded by 20 years of memories spread across the living room floor. Emma's first birthday, her face covered in cake. Tyler's Little League games, that season where he struck out every single time but refused to quit. Vacations to the Smokies, where we'd hiked and canoed and pretended we were outdoorsy people, even though we all hated camping. Christmas mornings, 4th of July barbecues, countless ordinary moments that had somehow added up to a life. "I really did love you, Chris," Sylvia said softly, holding a photo of us from our wedding day. "We looked so young, so hopeful. I still do, in a way. I got lost. The studio was struggling, I was turning 40, and I felt like I was disappearing into middle age. Like I'd become invisible. Just someone's mom, someone's wife, not a person in my own right anymore. It wasn't about you not being enough. It was about me not feeling like I was enough. I wish you'd talk to me instead of." I couldn't finish the sentence. "I know. I wish I had too. But I didn't know how to say, 'I'm unhappy,' without it sounding like, 'I'm unhappy with you.' And I wasn't, not really. I was unhappy with me, with my life, with getting older and feeling like my best days were behind me. Philip made me feel young and exciting again. He was a fantasy, an escape, and I was stupid enough to think it was real. He used you." "Yeah, he did. And I let him because I wanted to believe someone could see me that way. As someone desirable and interesting, not just as the mom in yoga pants picking up groceries or the wife nagging about taking out the trash." As winter settled over Louisville, something shifted between us. The kids noticed it first. The tension that had been suffocating our house for months began to ease. Sylvia and I weren't fighting. We were cooperating, co-parenting, even occasionally joking with each other. Emma cornered me one Saturday morning while I was making pancakes. "Dad, what's going on with you and Mom?" "What do you mean?" "You're being nice to each other. Are you getting back together?" I flipped a pancake, watching it arc through the air and land perfectly in the pan. "No, sweetheart. We're not. But you're not mad at her anymore. I'm still hurt. I'll probably always be hurt by what happened. But I'm not angry. Your mom made a terrible mistake, and she's paying for it. She lost her business, she's working 2 jobs, she's had to start her life over at almost 40. And she lost our marriage. That's punishment enough. So you forgive her?" I thought about it. "I'm working on it. For you and Tyler, and for me. Holding on to anger just makes everything worse. It's like," I searched for the right metaphor, "it's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick." The divorce was finalized in early February. We gathered with both lawyers in a conference room, signed the papers, and that was it. 20 years over with signatures and a judge's stamp. Sylvia moved into a small apartment across town and got a job managing a restaurant. She hated it at first, but gradually found her footing. Emma and Tyler adjusted better than expected, spending weeknights with me, weekends alternating. We had dinner together as a family once a week, all 4 of us. One evening in March, Sylvia showed up with a chocolate cake she'd made, the kind I used to love. We ate dinner together, laughed at Tyler's jokes, helped Emma with college applications. I looked at her, older now, marked by everything we'd been through. I think about Emma and Tyler. They need to see that people can mess up and still be decent to each other. That mistakes don't have to destroy everything forever. "I really am sorry, Chris. I know you are." We stood there in the kitchen, 2 people who'd loved each other once, who'd hurt each other deeply, but were finding their way to something new. Not marriage, not romance, but forgiveness and commitment to the family we'd created. After she left, I sat listening to the rain and my kids living their lives upstairs. The marriage was over, but the family survived. Different, scarred, but intact. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's refusing to let someone else's mistakes turn you bitter. Sometimes it's choosing to be bigger than the hurt, showing your kids that even when trust is broken, you can still choose kindness and family and healing. We'd all lost something this year, but we'd gained something too. The knowledge that we were stronger than we thought, more forgiving than we imagined, more capable of surviving than we believed possible. The divorce was final. The affair was over. The betrayal had been survived. and somehow, impossibly, we were going to be okay. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.